Hey there! Have you ever stopped to think about why we say we set up a tent, but we put up a fight? It's kind of funny, right? Well, today we're diving headfirst into the fascinating world of phrasal verbs. You're going to see how just one tiny word can completely flip the meaning of what you're saying. So let's get into it.
All right, let's start with a super common one. Imagine you're out camping. What do you say? I'm going to go set up the tent, or I'm going to go put up the tent? I mean, they sound almost identical, don't they? But here's the thing. They actually carry slightly different feelings. It's a perfect example of how these little phrases can pack a surprisingly big punch. And that's really where the magic is. The difference feels so small, so subtle, but your choice of words, man, it can totally reveal what you're thinking, what your intentions are, even how formal or informal this situation is. It is all about being precise. So, here's our game plan for today. We're going to start with stuff in the physical world, then jump into social situations, look at some everyday decisions, and finally, we'll wrap it all up with a little toolkit to help you master all these nuances. All right, first section, let's talk about arranging our world. We're going to look at those subtle little differences in the verbs we use when we're organizing all the physical stuff around us. Okay, so first up, we've got lay out. When you lay out something, you're being really careful, really organized. It's almost like you're getting ready for an inspection or a big presentation. Think about an architect laying out blueprints on a table, or a surgeon laying out their instruments before an operation. See? It's all about that careful visual precision. Next, we have set out. In this one, it's all about purpose. You're not just moving things around, you're placing them with a specific goal in mind. Like when you set out snacks for a party, they're there for people to eat. Or you set out documents for a meeting, they're there to be used. The whole focus is on being ready for something. And then there's put out. This is definitely the most casual one of the bunch. It's just making something available. A lot of the time, it's done in a hurry. You're not worried about how it looks, you just need it done. You know, like when unexpected guests show up and you have to quickly put out some extra chairs. No fuss, just action. So looking at this chart really helps it click, right? Layout is all about that careful display. Set out is about being prepared for a purpose. And put out is just about making something available, no frills. You can almost think of it as a spectrum, you know? From super organized and deliberate all the way down to quick and casual. Okay, so let's circle back to that tent question from the beginning. Now that we have this framework, we can really see what's going on. It's such a great example because honestly, both phrases are totally correct, but they feel a little different. And here's the breakdown. When you say you're putting up a tent, you're really just talking about the physical act of, well, raising it, getting it upright. But saying you're setting it up, that feels a little more complete, doesn't it? It suggests the whole shebang, from unpacking it to assembling the poles, all the way to making sure it's ready to sleeping. All right, let's switch gears. We've talked about physical objects. Now let's move into the social world. We're going to look at the phrasal verbs that pop up in our interactions with other people. Everything from sweet family traditions to, well, some not-so-sweet confrontations. Okay, let's talk about hand down. This phrase has such a feeling of legacy to it, you know? It's not just giving something away. It's this deliberate, almost formal act of passing on something important, something precious. Think of a family heirloom, like a watch or a secret recipe. It's deeply, deeply personal. Pass on the other hand, is a bit broader and usually more casual. The focus here isn't so much on personal legacy, but more on just keeping something going, continuing it, like a community that passes on its traditional songs, or a mentor who passes on their knowledge. It's more about keeping the information or tradition in circulation. And this example just says it all, doesn't it? My grandmother handed down her favorite folk song. She didn't just share it, it was handed down. You can feel the weight of that, right? It was a personal, cherished gift passed with real care and intention. Okay, now for something a little spicier, a confrontation. What's the real difference between telling someone off and dressing them down? Yeah, they both mean scolding somebody, but oh boy, the power dynamics and the sheer intensity are completely different. So here's the deal. To tell someone off is usually an emotional outburst, right? It's direct, it's informal, it just kind of happens. But a dressing down, that's a whole other level. That's a formal, serious, and pretty thorough reprimand, and it almost always comes from someone in a position of authority, like a sergeant dressing down a recruit. One is about letting off steam, the other is about enforcing discipline. All right, moving on to section 3. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of everyday life. These are the phrases you'll hear and use all the time when you're making decisions, from what you eat to how you manage your to-do list. Okay, picture this. You've decided you want to be a little healthier. So, do you say you're going to cut back on sugar or cut down on sugar? Again, both totally work, but they signal a very different level of commitment.
Cutting back on is all about moderation. You're just reducing a little bit. But when you cut down on something, that implies a much bigger, more purposeful reduction. You've identified a problem and you're tackling it. It's kind of the difference between skipping that second cookie versus deciding to give up desserts entirely for a while.
Here's another one I bet you use almost every single day. You finish something on your checklist. Do you tick it off or check it off? What does your gut say? What just sounds right to you? So the difference really comes down to how formal it is. Tick off feels pretty casual, right? It's just that simple, satisfying little flick of the pen. But check off, that sounds a bit more deliberate, more systematic. It implies you're not just marking it done, you're actually verifying that a task on a list is complete.
And that brings us to our final part. Let's call it your precision toolkit. We've looked at all these little nuances. So now, let's pull it all together and give you some tools to really master this stuff.
So, when it all comes down to it, here's what you need to do. Before you use one of these phrases, just take a half second to ask yourself a few questions. What's the situation? Is it formal or casual? What am I really trying to say? What's my intention? Because choosing the right phrasal verb isn't just about getting the grammar right. It's about adding this incredible layer of precision and meaning to your communication. You know, once you start paying attention to these tiny differences, you can really take your communication from just, functional to something truly precise and powerful. The English language is just packed with these little hidden gems. So I'll leave you with this question. What subtle phrase will you choose to master next?